I just need to pre-warn everyone. I've got Benidorm voice. I was in Benidorm 2 weeks ago and it hasn't recovered, so this isn't my normal husky voice. It's ruined me. I am a singer now. I sound like Barry. Like, that's the only good thing about this. When I go home in the car, I can sing like Barry White, so everyone wins in that respect. Do you want me to just start, Jack?
Are we recording, right? Yeah, go for it. And people just join if they're coming.
Jack picked the title, by the way, not me. So I have to date that because he's put it all in the printing and stuff. So. So essentially, we're going to do this talk on. I'll come on to my background, but we're going to talk about like digital strategies for SMEs, for like small to medium businesses. Dispelling myths, because there's loads of myths, there's lots of bullshit that goes around from consultants and agencies and internal teams and stuff. And we're going to talk about like what's working now. Obviously, AI is going to get mentioned because that's what all anyone can ever talk about nowadays. But we're going to dispel some myths on that as well, because there is a lot of noise that goes into what AI means for marketing and what it means for your business. But hopefully, I'll touch on some of that. And obviously, at the end, if you want any more information, just give me a shout.
Good.
Yep. Do you need a cue to change your slides, or? I mean, what I didn't realise with that picture is I've got one ear bigger than the other, so that's great to find that out. Like, but so I'm co-founder of a digital agency called Studio 2. There's two of us, which is why we're called Studio 2. Couldn't think of a more creative name. I've actually got more than 15 years. I just didn't want to admit it. I've been in digital marketing since 2009, but specifically in SEO, PPC, PR. Pretty much try my hand at most things that I was allowed to, really. But I think what I've found through the years is my bullshitometer is pretty good. I can tell when people are telling you lies, and I can tell when people are trying to sell you the dream. The reason myself and a co-founder, we set up Studio 2 because we've both been on agency side and we've both been on client side, and we got sick of dealing with agencies that were not great, so we set our own thing up. And touch wood, it's been okay so far. I've got 3 kids and 25 animals, so like I'm hoping it goes well. Next slide, please.
At least it's that way around.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I'll use that joke in the next one I do later. So it's Studio 2. We kind of focus on these 3 pillars. The main ones we're going to touch on today are the top 2, because influencer and affiliates, its own beast. But I think the big things we're going to hopefully going to take away from this is when to use the channels and when not to use the channels, because there is times where these channels just don't make any sense to invest in. And a lot of that comes down to your audience. A lot of it comes down to your strategy as well. And I think the biggest thing is to take away as well is just to make sense of digital marketing. It isn't a dark art, and it isn't something that should cost you an arm and a leg to do. Next one, please, Jack. So this is the landscape that we're in at the minute. Attention, like, because of TikTok and because of things like that, people's attention is crazy. I'm bad for this. I'll watch something on the TV and I'm flicking through my phone, and I say to myself, what the hell are you doing? Like, even when I'm watching Newcastle play, I'll still flick through my phone, and it's like, you should be giving it attention. But that stat actually shocked me. So it used to be back in the day you had 6 or 7 seconds to capture someone's attention. It's now dropped down to 1.5 seconds, which is just obscene. But that's why short form video and short form content actually works. Trust is a big thing. So if any of you are doing SEO, if any of you have done SEO, if any of you have got a website, you'll hear the acronym EEAT, which is experience, expertise, authority, and trust. A lot of platforms adopt and adhere to those rules. Trust is a big thing. So in Google's eyes, if you've got reviews and you've got things to back up how good you are, great. It's going to help you with the algorithm. Similarly with Facebook and Meta, it's the same principle. And then the big one, AI. So what we've actually found with AI is use it for content, right? Don't shy away from it, because you can create far more content with AI than a human can do. Just make sure that it's vetted and make sure that you're using it in the right way. So I mentioned Grammarly before. We've got content writers at our agency who will use it for pointers, and they will use it to help us scale up big content pieces. Doesn't mean to say they're relying on it heavily, but it can do the job of 100 people, 1,000 people in 10 minutes, you know, so it's lean on it. What it's also meant is that there's been a huge shift in people's approach to how they find your brand and your agency and your company. So I mentioned before, if you were in the earlier talk, people used to Google things, and that was a thing. I've Googled it. That has changed massively. So people are searching on TikTok. I mentioned before, like the last car I got, I bet I spent an hour trying to find out how to lift the bonnet up, and I'm not even exaggerating. I didn't know how to do it, so I got my daughter's TikTok and went on a TikTok and found it. So like people are using it in a different way, and you should adhere to that and adopt that. There's been a massive privacy shift. So people mention cookies and they mention things like that a lot. What's happened a lot lately in the last sort of 2 years is you'll see it pop up when you go on every single website to accept. Now, you can say yes or no if you like, but what it's meant for you as a brand is that the data you can pull from that is diluted quite a lot. So 5 years ago, you could have a lot of good quality customer data there, but now it's meant that you don't get that, so you have to use multiple platforms to try and expand your reach. This is probably the biggest thing that's going to happen in digital marketing in the last 10 years, video. So video search is now being pulled through to ChatGPT and Proximity and these AI platforms. You've obviously got TikTok where you've got your video and you've got Meta. I think voice search, which is going to be tough with an accent like mine, but voice search is a big thing. But I think the more video you can get out, favor this content over written content, because this is what's going to be helping you to rank in Google moving forward, and this is what's going to be helping you grab customers. So anything you're writing in Word format, translate it into video if you can, and humanize it. I think Jack mentioned before. The more you can humanize it, the better chance you are of figuring out in the algorithms. And then ad costs. So about 3 years ago, Google got took to court by the European Union for the stupidest thing ever, for monopolizing their own platform, because what happened is they were favoring Google Ads over everything else. So when you were searching for men's black trainers, it would pop up with an ad and you'd have the sponsored list. If you go and search that same thing now, you'll see that that's changed massively. It's now AI overview, it's now more organic, it's more video. What that's meant is they're charging more. So be careful with Google Ads. Be very careful with it, because that's not going to stick around in the way that it is now. It's either going to get more expensive so they can recoup their costs, or it's going to change dramatically when they start really adopting more of an AI approach. And I think this is important. Us as an agency, when we're working with a client, we only advise on what to spend on these platforms. We don't make any money off them. So if it's in our best interest, and any other agency or consultant, to advise you on the best way forward. My advice would be, if you're a B2B brand, just be very careful where you're spending your money and do your due diligence first. Use the AI platforms to find out where your audience are and look at how they're interacting with you through Google Analytics and what have you. Next slide, please, Debbie. So these are some of the myths and some of the things that you get people saying and you hear a lot of. So we heard this before in the social one, but you have to post every day. You don't, right? There is tools within these platforms to schedule your posts. You also have to think about as well, are you posting in the right place? So with things like LinkedIn gets underutilized from an ad standpoint because it's expensive and people don't understand it. If you're dealing with B2B, if you're dealing with businesses, use LinkedIn before anything else, because the data that's in LinkedIn is so valuable. It doesn't leak anywhere else. It's within LinkedIn.
Is that from an ad perspective?
From an ad perspective, yeah. So you can sponsor your posts, you can send sponsored messages, you can be hyper-targeted with it. But what it's meant is that you don't have to post every day, right? You have to be frugal with what you're doing because your time's precious, but use the tools to help schedule your posts. I mean, a big one for me, because I've been in SEO a long time. SEO is dead. It isn't dead. It's just transformed. It's went from being the be-all.
Search engine optimization.
Yeah, so traffic, essentially organic traffic going to your website. Now, 10 years ago, it was where everyone was spending the money, right? People were spending 10, 20, 30 grand. For us, we were driving nice cars, right? Because we're doing the work for them. And I had a happy wife at that point, so it was good. But now it's changed. And what it's meant is that SEO hasn't died, but instead of it being one platform or two in Google and Bing, what it means now is there is several platforms. There's Reddit, there's Google, there's Bing, there's the LLMs, which is your AI platforms. There's all of that to consider, as well as your organic social, right? So it hasn't died. You've just got to adapt to it. It's a bit like the high street. You know, if you own a physical store on the high street and you're relying purely on footfall, you're going to struggle now. You need a website. It's the same with SEO. You need to diversify on it. I think where organic reach it comes into play is the same thing, right? So best advice I would give, and happy to do this for anyone here who has a business, start with your keyword research before you do anything. Before you do any form of marketing, get some keyword research done on your products, what your competitors are ranking for, and just see where that's figured. So if you pull 100 keywords and you see that actually traffic for those keywords is coming from Google search, coming from an LLM, an AI platform, adhere to that, right? You don't have to do everything that anyone else is doing. You do what's right for your keywords and for your customers. AI will definitely replace marketeers, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it's not Terminator-style Skynet, but it's getting there. But I think we have to embrace AI, and it gets mentioned a lot now. I mean, I saw a video of the Queen Mother rock bottoming Stephen Hawkins the other day, so it's getting out of control, like some of this. But I think we've got to use it as a tool, use it for analysis. We use it for analysis in our business. It's cut our costs massively. So we don't have to rely on platforms that were costing us a couple of grand a month. We're relying on something that's costing us $20 a month. You should do exactly the same for audience and competitor analysis. That's the benefit of using it. And I think these two last ones go hand in hand. So where possible, use a specialist for your ads, because you'll overspend if you don't, and you'll waste a hell of a lot of money. And don't worry about any of this stuff. Worry about inquiries. That's a be all and end all. You'll hear people talk about impressions and reach and stuff like that. Worry about what's happening to your pocket. So if it doesn't matter if you're getting in front of 1 million people, if that's not translating into sales, and what's the point in you actually doing that, you know? Here's some bullshit that you'll hear if you work with an agency or a consultant. You'll hear vague metrics. So what I was touching on earlier, always just go for the metrics that are going to matter. If you ever work with anyone externally, do not let them own anything platform-wise. Don't let them set up your ads and own it. Don't let them set up your website and own it. Ideally, don't build the website on something that they own the source code on either, because you're stuck with them. And also, just make sure that your data is yours. Your data is your currency. So if you've got platforms out there that are holding customer data, like CRM systems and HubSpot, make a backup. It's obvious, right? But that data is invaluable to you, and make sure that you've got it under lock and key. Anyone that's offering you a long contract when you work with them, run a mile. Long contracts don't really show that they're putting their neck on the line. It shows that they're just trying to tie you in for a long time and take your money. Over-reporting, so if anyone's reporting on metrics that just don't matter to you, or they're reporting on numbers that are bigger than what's actually happening, on the offshoot of that as well, do not trust Google Analytics as one source of truth, right? If you're using a website and you've got inquiries coming through your website, have multiple platforms feeding into a dashboard if you can, because if you trust one source, you'll get it wrong. And an example of this is, we've got a client in our agency. They've got an affiliate platform. They've got Google Analytics. They kicked off with us about a week ago saying, we've only done $4 grand through our affiliate program. When we actually looked in Airwin, in their analytics profile, they've done 35 grand. So the difference there is massive. We would have lost that contract if they just used GA. But because we had the data and multiple sources and we've got one dashboard, it was a mic drop moment, I'm not going to lie. I should have dropped my phone really at the time, but I didn't. This is easy for me to talk because I'm going to blast you with buzzwords here, but run a mile when you hear buzzwords. And this is the biggest load of bollocks you'll hear ever. So you'll see these ads when you're on Facebook, when you're on Instagram, and they pop up and they say, I'll guarantee I'll get you on Google, on page 1 of Google. Yeah, for what? For what keyword? For my own name. Brilliant. That's not going to do anything for us. So just be careful when anyone's promising you. We never promise anything until we've got our teeth under the bonnet. So until we've actually done our due diligence and really done research, we never ever promise anything like this. Next one, please. Stop thinking about some of these things as well. I think these are common mistakes. And where we've gotten these from, before I came here today, is we looked at some discovery calls we've had with clients to hear some of the things that they're telling us and hear some of the things that the horror stories that they've had. So things like boosting posts, there was, I think, was it yourself talking about the post boosting?
No, it was the guy from the last one.
So there was a guy in earlier about boosting his posts, saying he was trying to get it out in front of people, he'd boost his posts, and then he was dubious as to what happens after that. Don't. Go on Google Ads instead. Don't boost your posts. Boosting your posts is what a window cleaner does. Like, don't do your proper research before you do it and make sure you're setting up the ads properly. I think paying for influencers. Now, this one could be huge for you if you do it in the right way. There's platforms called Tribe. So Tribe is about $100 per brief. What you can do is if you've got your own business and you want to get an influencer to give you some reach, brilliant. But use something like Tribe because you can control how much you're spending on them. It's $100, $120, and you can give them, they'll give you a set amount of posts and a set amount of coverage. And make sure that it's tracked, so then you can track it back to sales. This is a big one. There's a big problem in digital marketing with the cost of a website. You can build websites now through Squarespace, through other platforms, which are fairly cost effective. Just be careful if someone mentions they're going to build a website and put SEO in there when they build it. There's no such thing, right? It's like someone building a hotel and guaranteeing that they're going to send people to stay in your hotel. How can they do that? And I think be careful when you're buying lists. So one advice I'd give, if you are doing any sales outreach or any email outreach, use platforms like Apollo or Instantly, where you can pull verified lists of your client base, right? So if you're dealing with facilities managers, these platforms are like $50 a month, and it's all verified, clean data that you can use. Don't buy any lists that people are selling to you, which still goes on to this day. And I think with things like branded films, just make sure anything that you're doing on here has a conversion pathway. So I need to hit home the message that if you are spending on marketing, make sure you know what the end goal is. And the end goal, like Jack gave an example before, you might have a few different touch points. You might have downloading a sample, you might have calling, you might have someone approaching you through email. Make sure it's all got tracking against it, and that's what you're measuring, not how much they're sending out the door. Next one, please, Jack. Where you should invest, where the areas you should definitely invest, I think are these. I've kind of whittled it down to 4 realistically. So Google and local search. Local search is massive, right? You can clean up on that if you get it right. So back in the day, you used to be able to keyword stuff. You used to be able to say plumber Ashington, plumber Newcastle, plumber Blythe. Doesn't work anymore. What you've got to do is make sure that your website, if you're catering for a radius, you've got all the areas you cover within Google search, within Google local search, and your content reflects that. Make sure that you do have a strong CRM, so HubSpot, something like that with a data source like Apollo. That we use that in our agency. It's a perfect suite because it means we can outreach to potential customers, we can track them, and we can build a cadence so we can make sure that we're keeping in touch with them every so often. Massive, as I mentioned earlier, any video marketing you can do. So this is now getting pulled through. If you search now, you can see it. It's now getting pulled through to Google. It's now getting pulled through to all AI platforms. So the more short form video you can do, the better chance you are of factoring in the algorithms. And then I would favor paid social over any Google ads all day long because you can be super targeted. You can also, if you've got a client list with email addresses, load it into Facebook and you can create a lookalike audience. So that'll give you an audience that looks like your customer base and you can be really hyper targeted with them. You can also create super effective funnels, so an awareness funnel, a consideration funnel, and a purchase funnel, and a retargeting funnel. So if someone comes to your site, retarget to them, and it's a perfect blend. What it also means as well is, I mentioned earlier, there's a free platform called Facebook Ad Library, where you can see what all your competitors are doing. You can see the ads they're running, the call to actions they're running, some of the metrics behind that, and if it's working, you can replicate it, which is great. You can also screenshot the ads, drop them into ChatGPT and say, build my company a better ad format than this, and it works a treat. So just make sure that if you are going to spend on paid channels, favor social channels like LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok especially. Don't hide away from TikTok. There's a direct correlation with what's trending on TikTok to what's trending on other platforms. It's becoming one of the biggest channels for that. So make sure that you're creating ads and you've got budget assigned to that as well as organic. Yeah. I've created this, which I'm not going to talk through because it's death by PowerPoint, but if you are creating a marketing strategy, this is a simple rule we've used for years, which is a 90-day plan. Stuff changes so much across a year that you're better off creating something like this to manage your marketing for a 3-month period. That'll be doing your discovery, your foundation to start with, optimizing what's been done, scaling it up, and then testing it and reviewing it. This is the most important because this will dictate your spend for the foreseeable future because you'll know what's working and what isn't. And always leave a bit of budget for testing. So leave budget for testing LinkedIn, leave budget for testing email, leave as much budget as you can aside for testing other channels and just use it as a test. So as long as you've got the KPIs you want to track, dip your toe in the water. Don't just rely on one channel to drive everything. What we can do is we can send you this afterwards. And if you want to have something for your own brand, happy to create something for you and give you a rough idea of how it could look for your kind of business as well. And then a bit of an agency bullshit pack. So own your accounts and your data, set clear KPIs, just the stuff we've touched on before. There are some great agencies in the Northeast, some brilliant agencies. There are some bad. If you follow these principles, you'll be fine. And we've based these on our experience working at agencies, what some of them have done. And every agency I've worked at has done most of these things, so you have to be quite careful with them. Yeah, and just the final thoughts, I think strategy is key. So the 90-day plans, brilliant. Simplify what you're doing. And what I mean by that is your process online as well. So just because you're spending on marketing, if your website has a barrier for someone getting in touch with you, it doesn't really matter how good the marketing is. What that includes, I would download tools like Hotjar. So Hotjar is a free tool to start with. It's a heat map for your website. So it will tell you where people are spending time and where blockers are happening. So if you're seeing a huge red dot above your phone number and you don't have any tracking on that, that's a red flag, right? Because you need tracking on that to see who's coming through and how the ads are performing. You can get other tools as well that can help you with conversion, but they're the best ones really. Again, measure everything you do. So try and get in the mindset of using multiple things to measure one thing and get the good source of truth. You can build Looker Studio dashboards pretty easily now, which will pull through analytics, your website, it will pull through a few different things. Clicks are big now. So there's a study just been done with Google that because of AI overviews, so the little thing that pops up when you're searching, which gives you some suggestions, that's meant that clicks have actually dropped 66% across all of Google. So it means that people are favoring clicks more because they're diminishing. If you get a click to your website, hold on to that because that is so important. Get the website right, get the flow right, make sure that clicks are your currency. And then be curious, as I say, test. Test as much as you can. Even if you've got a set amount of budget, take 25% of that away for testing because that 25% could end up being your biggest channel, and you don't know until you test it. Any questions?
Just as a design layout for your websites, how complicated or how simple should you make them in terms of diversifying what you do? You're trying to show your customers that you do 6 or 7 different things. Should you do it the classic way, like splitting the web pages up, or how do you integrate it? Because everybody's less patient these days, trying to get them on.
Yeah, great question. I would potentially lean on the data you have. So I think people make the mistake of making the websites too complicated, right? But landing pages are massively important. So if you've got several services and products that you have, create a specific landing page for those, almost like a hub. Get FAQs in there. FAQs are so important for search in AI and in Google. So if you're answering questions that people are asking, then that's going to help you across all these platforms to configure. Design, it's aesthetics, right? Design could be, it's someone's opinion. It's more the flow and the speed. So if you're compromising the speed and the load speed of a website because you want to have a huge image on there, don't, because that's still a ranking factor in some of these platforms. So this slower websites, you will get penalized, a bad word, but it will negatively affect you.
And then, and turning those customers into, let's say, emails in your inbox, is that a case of making it simple for them to click, ask what they want, and go, or is it a case of phones or emails direct? What does the evidence show that people are?
I think it depends on your customer base. You knew I was going to say it depends, like a typical marketing person would say it depends. It does depend on your customer base, right? So if you've got a particular type of customer who you can see from their behaviors that they just want information quickly, then you might not need as big a lead form. But I think you need multiple, what we would call a lead magnet. So you might need that form. You might need a quick sign up to a newsletter with some kind of offer. You might need call tracking. So just make sure you've got multiple forms of them being able to get information from you. The other thing you can use is social channels. So use your social channels to capture email addresses. So run competitions, run ads that lead to a landing page where they can sign up. Think about your website as being the root, and then the branches are all the other platforms you're using. They're all part of the same ecosystem. So utilize them to try and get email addresses and close customers in.
Can I ask, going back to TikTok, if
Yeah.
you haven't used TikTok before, what's the best sort of practice to start gaining traction on TikTok? Is it 2 or 3 times a week, original video content, length of content? Is that vitally important?
I would do a dance video before you do anything. So that's your first protocol. It all depends. I think because people's attention spans are really low, keeping them at, and there's also another reason for this, keeping them at 30 seconds also helps with your Facebook ads, because what they class there, if someone's viewed your video for that period of time, what it means is it drops into a remarketing group in Facebook as well. But with TikTok, keep them short and sweet. There isn't a rule of thumb over how much you should be posting and how regular. It's all about testing what's going to work for your audience. There's a fine line between doing enough and bombarding people. But if it's the right information, then get it out as regular as possible. And a good example would be, so we've got a client that deals with a particular, they're a hobby brand, right? So they do trains, Hornby trains actually. So what they've got is a particular type of audience who are in their lofts and spend thousands of pounds on these crazy expensive trains. But what they were finding is that people were searching their website a lot on how-to questions, like how to build this site, what paint should I use, so on and so forth. So what they did is built a suite of TikTok short-form videos that respond to these questions, and they basically just load them up every so often, and it's worked wonders for them, because it's meant that from an algorithm standpoint, TikTok's picked up on the themes and the terms within there. So I think it just all boils down to how much research you've done, really. And the dancing, obviously, don't forget that.
Can I ask, can you then repurpose already published longer form videos.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Just
You
cut
can
them up.
snip them down, cut them up. You can repurpose them on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, going back to the toy brand, the beauty of them is they've got lots of people resharing their products and reviewing and talking about their products on YouTube, right? So they've got all this long form, some 20-minute videos. But for them, it's brilliant because they can cut that up and use it in all their other formats. So definitely, you know, it used to be the case of start with your YouTube video first and then work your way back. It's probably changed a little bit now where it's start with your short form and see how you can essentially bulk it out. But don't be afraid with TikTok. You know, I think people still have the misconception that it's for 18 to 24-year-olds, but it actually isn't. It's becoming a big business channel now as well. It is still quite relatively cheap from a paid standpoint in comparison to the other channels. That'll change, obviously, but it's still more cost effective.
Could I ask a question about emails, please, and how you can use that as a targeted marketing target? I've often thought about sending emails to companies about my services, and I was just wondering how you can go about that without, you know, attracting some attention in the first place. You know, is it a useful tool, or
Yeah, definitely.
does it depend on what you put in and the title?
Yeah, I mean, you've got some considerations now because spam filters have become really strict, right? So you have difficulty if you want to send a link because they class that as a salesy email. You have difficulty sending in mass if you've got one email box, and you have difficulty sending attachments because they'll class that as spam. So I think what we've got in our own agency and what some of our clients do is we use tools like Instantly is a great example. So you can set up your mailbox in multiple aliases. So it means that if you are sending in mass 500, 1,000 emails or whatever, it's doing 10, 10, 20, 20, 30, 30. So it stops your domain getting blacklisted. I think where the outreach is concerned, keep it short and sharp and make sure that you have a cadence follow-up. So when we're doing it, we use a rule of thumb of having a three email sequence. So an opening email, the next email, and then a break-up email. And that works a treat for us. But keep it short and sharp.
Yeah.
Your subject lines, I would use AI to find out the best subject line that's not going to get you to hit the spam filters. Because if you mention anything about price, discounts, savings, anything like that, that email won't get to the person. It'll just get annihilated. And then use the data sources. So use things like Apollo, Instantly. You can get Google Chrome extensions. So if you've got LinkedIn, if you've got Sales Navigator, you can get a Chrome extension which will give you that person's email address, which is verified. Just make sure you're using that. And I think it's becoming more difficult because people are getting a lot more emails. But if it's hyper-targeted and it's short and sweet, it works a treat.
Okay. Appreciate your help. I wasn't thinking of a bulk email going out, just individual ones by myself, you know. So
Yeah.
that would be
Same principle.
Yeah, same principle, I would say. Yeah, just people fall foul of just doing one email and then like sitting back twiddling their thumbs expecting it to come in. But I think if you set up a cadence, which a lot of these platforms let you do now, then you've got a better chance of getting that response back. Plus, you can go back to them in a month or 3 months' time or whatever as well.
Is there a system where you know that they've actually read it, or?
Yeah, most of these platforms will tell you, yeah. They'll tell you if they've read it or clicked or if there are links in there, which is difficult now. But yeah, like HubSpot, Apollo, there's a myriad of them. At the minute, we use a hybrid of like Instantly and Apollo, and I think for us, it costs about $100 or something like that a month. Okay. But that gives us the data, the platform, and the analytics, so it's pretty much everything that we need, really.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that.
No worries.